Hello everyone, welcome to Brenda's Brushstrokes and Bits, painting live on January 5th, 2023. So happy New Year's everyone. So we will get, let everyone get on first, but tonight is going to be a little different, kind of a little continued education, I guess we could call it, because we have our box finished for December and your new box for January is on its way. So we had some requests for pouring greenware, so we're going to do that tonight. So this is your January box that's on its way. It's the Kimple Birdhouse Snowman and then a Clay Magic tree. And the tree has snow and the tinsel glitter on it, so you guys will be getting your featured item is a whole jar of the tinsel glitter. And then I also did a crackle technique on the snowman's body. And so you'll be getting a whole bottle of Elmer's Glue All Glue as part of your featured item too, along with the tinsel glitter. And then the snow that's on there as well. So we will be doing him starting next Thursday. So he's gonna take all 4 weeks because he's got lots of dry brushing with all the color, and then we have the ombre technique going on his scarf. And you kind of did it with the 3 colors, the purple, the garnet red, and the navy. So he's got a lot going on. So tonight we have kind of a free extra class because we finished our gingerbreads early. So I did have request for kind of learning how to pour, which is probably good for you, anyone to know anyway, because then you kind of understand why pieces look the way they look and different things. So this is a mold. A mold is made out of plaster. Now this one's kind of dirty because it's the base for the holly tree, and we haven't gotten around to washing those up and putting those back yet. So they're generally 2 pieces. Sometimes they're the top. Sometimes it's 2 pieces the other way. Sometimes they can be 3 pieces. A lot of the older molds can be 5 pieces. And you'll find that they have a lot more detail in them. So the first thing you want to do is brush your mold out, and I usually just use a soft paintbrush for that. Make sure there's no dust in there. Then your mold will have the little keys. They call these keys. So there's little bumps. Here's 3 bumps and here's 2 bumps. So you want to match that up with your bottom because that's going to keep them locked together. And you want to be careful not to knock them off. So I'm matching up to 2 and then the 3. So that's how I know that fits nice and snug then. And then there are, if anyone's got questions along the way, just ask too. So there's a couple ways you'll want to strap this or band this together. So there are rubber bands. This is about as big of a piece that I will rubber band. Otherwise I kind of like to go with the straps. And I'm actually going to show you guys how these straps work because that was one of the hardest things for me to figure out. So this is what the straps look like. They come in different colors, and those colors mean how heavy they are. And so you want to turn it so that it's all not twisted up. And then I like to put it in my hand with the color side up, so you can see like that's the inside. This is like the outside, just like with your clothing. And then I flip that guy back. And then I keep this so it's not twisted up. Like you don't want it twisted up like that, so you want to untwist it. And then you bring that end with the outside, the colored side up. You put it through there, and then you put the colored side back through there. So now when we go to close the mold, that will strap on there like that. So I'm just going to show you guys that again because that was always a really hard thing for me to figure out how to get these straps to work. Again, so I have it opened up, and I just flip that buckle back towards me. And so I usually put it towards me like this, bring that strap around, put it through that first hole. And again, I'm just keeping the fabric side up, or the outside up. Put it through that hole again, and now you can adjust it however big or little you need it. So we could put that on our mold. And I usually go looser. And so this is kind of a big mold, a little mold to have a strap on, but I want to show you how to put the strap on anyway. So like you don't want the strap, this buckle in the whole part. You want it on the mold itself, and you want to have you want it tight, but you don't want it so tight that it's going to dig into your mold. And you can also put a piece of cardboard underneath there, like a little 4x4 piece of cardboard, and that will help save your molds from getting dug into. And then you just gently push it down, and you can see that it's snug enough. If you're over here and it's really, really tight, like it's going to be so tight you can't do it. That's too tight. So you just put a little bit, let a little bit back, and then clip it down, and then that's ready to pour. But we're going to use the rubber band tonight just so you guys can probably see better. And so this is just, I'm just going to go on there nice and snug too. So I usually got to put them against my body to get it on. So you can see that this is on there nice and snug, and our top isn't going nowheres. So that's how you're going to put your band on, rubber band on, if you're using that. So if you guys got questions, just ask along the way. And I did pour a couple molds when I got home from the classroom, so hopefully they'll be set up that we can take them apart while we're letting this guy set up. So I usually have a rack that I can put them on after I drain them back out. So I put some slip in here in my little pitcher. Hopefully it's enough for our base. Another tool that you can have is the Lucy tool. It actually has the word Lucy in it. It's a fettling tool. Fettling is what they're called. I think the new ones now are white and they're more of a hard plastic. This one's more of a rubber. These are really old, from the 80s, and you probably can't find them anymore. I found a lady that was selling them in Texas, and I got a bunch of them just because I like the softer rubber versus the hard plastic. So I put my slip in my little pitcher here, and I just pumped it in with my pump. So if you have it in a pail, you're going to stir up your pail. I would strain it into a bigger pitcher if you're pouring by hand. Like I use like a half-gallon water pitcher, and I put it through a strainer. And then I want to pour into and you want to have enough that's going to fill this, because you don't want to stop, because then you'll have a pouring line. So hopefully, I should have enough in here. So I'm going to pour this into my mold slowly. And I'm also going to move it back and forth so that I don't end up with a hot spot. So I'm not pouring real fast, but I can see it's coming up. I'm moving back and forth. So now it hit the top here. And I'm going to bring it up to the top, just about up, so it's right there. Then I take a rubber mallet and I gently tap on my sides, and that's going to bring any air bubbles that are in there to the top. And so now I look at my clock. So this isn't a really big piece, so we probably only want it about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch thick. So what happens is our mold is absorbing the moisture out of the clay slip, and that is making our piece. And we're going to let it sit, but I'm going to keep watching it. And as the the level goes down, so like my level is here, but it's going to keep dropping. And after it drops a little bit, I'm going to keep adding slip to it. And I'm going to keep doing that the whole time that I'm letting this sit up. And it'll be about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, there's no set rule as far as how long, because it can depend upon if your slip has a lot of water in it. Now, this mold is really dry because I haven't poured these for a while. If the mold is really wet, it'll take longer for the mold to absorb the moisture out of the slip. If it's really humid out, it can take longer for the mold to absorb the moisture out of the clay too. So that it's not just a cut and dried thing. So what you like, I know that something like this is going to take like 15 to 20 minutes, but then we're going to actually measure it with this tool, and that's actually a better method than timing it, although you're probably going to use both of them in combination. So I'm going to keep topping this off. So now we can see, hopefully you guys can see, I don't want to tip it because then it, like this is dropped about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to come back and top it back off. And that's going to give us an accurate measurement of how thick our piece is getting. Now I went a little bit higher than I would like to. You don't, when you're topping it off, you don't want to go higher than when you first poured it, but it'll be okay. So I'm going to set him over here just so we can keep watching him. And then I have a couple molds that I poured. So this is one. This is about as big as I go with the rubber bands. So this mold has 3 bases in it, and I'm not sure if they're going to be quite ready because I poured them at 5 o'clock. I should have poured them this morning and I forgot. Let me see. Deanie says, oh, I had to use more rubber bands than one. How did you do it without leaking? They're really tight. So I'm going to take my Lucy tool, and I usually clean this off, and then I'll save this and put it into like a gallon bag. And then if you need it for fixing things, you can use it for that. But we're just going to put it aside. So now this is called the spare down in here where we poured it. So this is, we're waiting for our piece to get this thick. So I have to keep topping it off. So these are little round bases. So sometimes you can, most of the time you want to cut this spare out. So you go down against you push the Lucy tool, your fettling tool, against the mold, and you just kind of work your way around it. And you don't want to get too far down because you can end up cutting into your piece. And sometimes, depending upon your piece, you may only want to loosen this up. So like on this one, I'm just going to loosen it up because sometimes there's detail in there and you don't want to mess that detail up. Say it has a scalloped edge. So like the tulips that I'm pouring right now for your February box, I have to cut a zigzag edge out, so I only loosen them up. But these bases, I just put it in right next to the edge and then just work my way around. Again, I take that spare out and I save it. So now, depending upon how big your piece is, you may need to wait 2 hours, like these little guys, probably 2 to 3 hours. Generally, I pour in the morning and take them out in the evening, or I pour at night and take them out in the morning, because they're usually the bigger box pieces. And the new chocolate slip seems a little bit more fragile than the clay slip with the talc in it. So I tend to let them sit a little bit longer, but hopefully we'll be able to get these guys apart. I wish I'd have poured them this morning, but I forgot to. Then I take my little rubber mallet, you want a hammer, and I gently tap on the sides. And usually you can hear there's a little looseness if it's going to come loose. If it's not, there won't be that little echo. So now I can tell that it's pretty loose. So I want to lift this top straight up. So I can lift it straight up. So now that's what we have inside there. So now I got to top this guy off a little bit. We want to keep him full. Alrighty, so now this is one base, and like you can just lift them out, and that's our nice little base. So then I put those on my shelf to dry. And I'll show you some other little things. So say you wanted to light this guy up. There are different little tools for making holes. You can get these hole cutters, come in different sizes. So this little size I will use for the pin lights. This one I use for putting my cords in the sides of things. And then also for the large pin lights and the twist lights. And then this guy I use for putting in the, like the tree light kit, where the light kit comes through the center of these. If I'm using the pinch light, I have this little tool that you can get, and like I get all my stuff from Glazers. There's different places you can get your stuff. If it's it all depends where you shop. So when I want the holes in this kind of stuff, I just push this down really gently, kind of turn it, and that makes my nice hole. For my cord to go through the side, I use this bigger one, and you decide like where you want your cord to go through. And now you can poke that through or leave it, but the clay is pretty soft, so I just leave it. The less I handle it, the less marks there will be on it. So now we have a little base that can be lit up, and we have one that's not lit up. Okay, and now this one I didn't trim out just to show you if say it had fancy little detail and you wanted to, you have to cut around it and trim it out. I just trim along, I just loosened it up. Then I take my X-Acto knife and I can see where to cut, and I just cut where I need to cut. So like on your February box, it's a tulip, so I have to cut up and down zigzags. And then I just use the X-Acto knife for that. So then we have another little base all cut out. So then this guy is done. Brush him out. If we're completely done with him and he's going back to the storage unit, we would take a take and scrape all this off. You want your molds to be nice and clean and taken care of. And then we wipe them down with a damp sponge to get all this off. You want to be really gentle where your detail is, so you're not like really scrubbing and then scrubbing your detail away. So again, this guy has our keys on it, so we want to match them up to the bottom. Sometimes they get dirty because you're doing stuff over the top of them. All right, so let's see, where are they? So sometimes you got to just turn them until you get them right, and then you can see it like fits right in there. And then I just put that strap back over there because we'd probably be pouring him again. And like it's a really snug. It's really snug, so I know the slip isn't going to come out of it. This is probably the biggest pieces that I would go with rubber bands. Otherwise, I go with the straps. And then I don't pour every day the same molds. I pour, or some people, I shouldn't say that. I pour like 4 to 5 days in a row, and then I let them rest. Some people may pour a mold like this 4 or 5 times in the same day, but the wetter it gets, the softer your detail gets, because the plaster gets soft, and then every time the mold comes out, your piece, you're taking texture from your detail of your mold. So I tend to just pour mine once a day and then let them get dried out really good. If you're getting that white fuzz on them, that's from the moisture coming out of the clay. Your molds you're overworking your molds, and you want to make sure you don't breathe that in too. So it's better to let them get a little dry in between. So now we're going to top this guy off. But before I do, I can see that we were up to here and now we're down to here. So we can actually test our thickness already. So I can take my Lucy tool and I'm going to go straight down into the slip, away from the edge, and then I'm going to come towards the edge and come straight up. So now part of this, this little area right here is how thick our piece is right now, and then this wet slip is where it's wet, but where this tool is clean, that's how thick our piece is. So that's why I like to use my tool more than the timer. The timer is just kind of a guide, and our tool of actually measuring the thickness is really more important. So let's see, we got any questions? Nope, we just got watchers, okay. So then so there are other tools that you can get for cutting things out. Some of the things I use, these are little square guys for cutting windows out of things or cutting squares. You poke it into it, and I can actually do it on one of these just to show you. So I say there was a window, and I'll just recycle this back into the slip. Do you find working with the bisque clay that it dries? Yes, it does. So say this was like a village house and I wanted to put windows in it. So this little thing slides and then it pushes the excess out. So we have our little window cutter. So you push it in there really gently. And sometimes you have to let it set up. And then if you push that, then that'll push the little hole out. So now the clay fell out. And say it was like a little 4-pane window. I actually take that thing out and don't really use it. You push it back in, push that out, and now you have your little open windows. So this guy comes in, they come in different shapes, sizes, I should say, not shapes, but sizes. And I like to just take that thing out. So say your window was bigger, you just push that in, and then you can just like pop it out. So that's, you can make windows with that, with the square guys. Then there are also little fancy cutters that you can get with hearts and diamonds, and that's these guys, and they all come in different sizes too. Like this is one little set, the stars, which I use on our snowmen. And these guys have a little plunger too that you push, but I never use the plunger part. Let me see what else we got. Some more questions. How do you work if back into your slip? So if you want to work this clay back into your slip, you need to let it dry. It will, if you put it in there wet, it's just going to stay as a glob, but you want to let it dry, and then I usually just throw the dry piece in there, and it like dissolves right back into the slip really easy, and then I mix it with my mixing motors. So these little guys, you can make like stars and things. So I just kind of wiggle them really gently, and then push it up to there, and then bring it out. And then I usually just take something and punch it out. So there's hearts and stars and different things that you can do with that. So those work really cool. If I'm putting, say like the tree lights in a tree, I'll use this thing here. Oh, don't want to stab myself. Don't need more stitches. So if we want tree light holes, you just take this guy and kind of like shimmy him back and forth, and just like that you have holes for your tree lights. Let's see, where'd the little guy go? Thought I had him in my hand here. And then I tend to lose them. So then this one here is for like the little pin lights. So that's how you can make holes and stuff. And then for the little mini pin lights, I actually use like a stir straw. And if you don't have these guys, you can use different size straws too. So I just push that through, and I'll let those till they dry. And then you can just come back like with the ball stylus and punch them up. But they're too wet to do it right away. You just kind of have to do it later. But that's how you get those holes in. So now this guy's dropped down a little bit, so I want to top him off. So I'm usually doing a couple of things while I'm pouring. I don't just pour and sit and look at the molds. So you can see I didn't come up as far as I was originally. I stayed down a little bit. All right, what else do we have to show you? Okay, so then there is, you can get the high fire wire to make your own little hooks. But you can also buy, like for the ornaments, you can buy these little U-hooks, high fire U-hooks. And they come already bent. And there's like 50 in a package. They're about $5 or $6 a package. They're not cheap. And then say this was an ornament, I would just take, hopefully you can see it's just a little U-hook. So you can put, you would just stick that in there if that was the ornament, let out as much as you want, and then that will fire in there, and now you could hang that as an ornament. But I'm going to take that out because I want to save him because he's kind of precious. And then this wire, you can just make your own U-hooks, but I had all those pre-bought ones for you guys' ornaments. This is for my glass. Actually, I'm going to use it in the glass hangers. That's why I have that. So let's see, what else can we show you? Oh, say you wanted to put, you have a snowman and you wanted to put stars in him. So Denise says it's fun, but it's a lot of work. Yep, it is. And so I'm still watching this guy. So say I wanted to put I'll probably just recycle all these guys, a star shape in my, say this, imagine this was a band on a snowman or a snowman's belly. So I used my ball styluses for that. And I would just, like you can emboss it right in there like that. Just press down in, make your plus sign, then make your X, just by embossing down into that wet clay. And then I'd usually take my little guy, which I seem to be losing here tonight, left and right. Okay, where'd you go, buddy? Oh, there he is. Then I'll take the little guy, and now you can even out your, say this one here is down a little bit further, and that one's a little bit shorter. So this hole I would put right at the tip of it, or the end of it. And then this one, I would actually put it out further into the smooth part, and that's going to make those both seem like they're the same length. So then I come to my other ones, put the holes in. And I want to knock these out so you guys can actually see them. So now I kind of draw an imaginary line there, and then I poke him out, do this same thing here. Now this one's out a little bit further, so we'll just bring my end in a little bit. This one's a little bit short, so I'll come out a little bit. That one's a little bit short, so I come out a little bit. And just like that, you can equal out your hole spacing on your line, even though your lines may not be exact. And then I usually put one right in the center. So you can do some things on the clay while it's still wet. If you're going to cut out names and things, I usually put mine I would put this piece into a plastic bag for about 3 days, and then emboss with a pencil, put my pattern over it, say it had the Joneses, trace over it with a pencil, and then come back with my X-Acto knife and cut it out. But that's all there is to that. So let's see. Have you ever poured too thick? Can you save the piece? Yeah, I've poured too thick on occasion. You get to be doing too many other multitasking things. If it's really too thick, I just let it dry and throw it back into the slip, the pouring tank that I have. That's all I do. But and if it was for something to ship, I'd probably put it on the shelf for sale instead of shipping and paying that extra weight on it. So this guy, you can see he's setting up yet, so we're going to top him off a little bit more, because we're probably at 15 minutes. I'm going to let him go a little bit thicker because I want you guys to be able to see the thickness of it. So I do have another little mold here. Now this little guy, I didn't keep topping it off. I only poured it one time, just because they're so little. And now this has a different type of a top on it. It kind of has them where they're all stuck together here, so you just got to kind of clean this out. So all the molds are different, whichever company makes them, or we got to kind of clean this out. And these are actually really cute little guys, that's why I poured them. And I figured they would set up quick. I didn't pour the other side. So this one you would pour this side, let it drain, and then come back and pour the other side. And then let it drain. These I usually pour solid. I usually top it off a couple times, but I kind of got busy and forgot to do that. So again, I take my little mallet, kind of tap it. You can kind of hear that little looseness right there, so that tells me it's going to come apart when I lift it up. So sometimes some go on one half and some go on the other half, so you kind of got to be careful with that. Then I pick these little guys up, so you can see how cute they are, the little candles for on a tree. So those guys, like, I didn't clean down in the hole because, like, you'd probably clean too far, so I just nipped their little ends off. I just kind of pick them up real gently. So sometimes you have to do things a little differently depending upon your mold. And then sometimes if they're not ready to come out, you can take them and just tap them, so you can see, like, he came out. Now he's loose. I don't want to flip it because they probably all fall and I'd make a mess out of them. And I just cut that off with that excess off with my little X-Acto knife, and then I put them aside to let them to dry. So now these two, we'll see if they're. So now these guys, they're not coming out. Oh, he came out. So I would just, like this guy's not coming, I'd just set him aside and let him dry a little bit until he's ready to come out. Some people will use a air compressor to do that. And then I would take my little sponge and wipe all this off there so he's ready to be poured again. I'll let this go a little bit further. One thing I can show you too, say you wanted to join two pieces together. Say you had two molds, or your mold had a, this mold had a foot to it or something. We'll make a foot here quick. So if say this was the foot, we're going to just be imaginative. And we want that foot, say this foot's supposed to go right here. There's a mark that the foot goes here. So you would want to put a hole in there. And if this was hollow, you'd want to make sure you had a hole in there. And then you're going to put little scratch marks, cross hatches on both pieces. This is for joining stuff. Then I usually take a little brush, dip it into my slip, put it on both pieces. Try not to be too messy with it. Then I line up my holes so they don't explode. Kind of give it a little twist back and forth because that really meshes them two pieces together so they don't come off. Oh, I didn't have water. So if I had water, then I would actually take and brush around this and kind of clean that up a little bit so that there's less cleaning to do later. So that's all there is to attaching a piece to another piece. That's kind of all there is to that. So let's see how this guy's looking. Make sure my tool is clean so I can look in, see where it's dry. Have you ever poured too thick? Okay, looks like that's the same question. All right, so how many of you guys actually pour your own stuff? So now I can see this is getting, you can see it's like dry looking from here to here, and then it's like wet looking inside. So that's our wet slip, and this is our piece that's set up. So now I don't want to tip it because then it's going to make it wet. So I'm going to take my Lucy tool or my fettling tool, go straight into the slip, pull it towards the outside, and once it hits the outside, come straight up. So now I can see that my piece is from here. That's how thick it is. So actually it's thick enough. So I just want to do that a couple more times so you guys can see. Oh, it looks like some of you guys do good. So just want to make sure you know, because a lot of people don't do this. They just time it, and then however thick it is, it is. But you just take your tool, and you could even take a plastic knife just to do this. You go into the slip, pull it towards the side of your piece, bring it straight out, and now we can see, like right there is how, from there to the end of the red is how wide our piece is. So does that make sense to everybody? Because that's really the most important thing probably of pouring, other than not pouring too fast and not dumping it out too fast, and then moving your little spout as you're pouring it in, excuse me, so you don't get a hot spot. If you pour in that same spot and don't move your pitcher or your hose, wherever that's hitting, that's what gives you those hot spots. So it looks like a few of you guys pour, so that's good. All right, so he looks like he's actually thick enough. So at that point, I take him and actually pour him back into my tank, but we're going to just slowly tip it and let it pour in there. You don't want to do it too fast because you can collapse your piece. So I just let it pour. If it's burping and gurgling, you're going too fast. But I just pour it back into there. And of course, less comes out than what went in because it's has a piece now. Then I'll let it sit on the pouring tank a few minutes until it gets done dripping out. And then it can sit on the pouring tank, or I have these racks on my shelves in there, and these are just from a shoe rack that I buy them and I don't put them together. I use the rack the shelves to put my molds on, so that I can line up all my shelves with all my molds on it. So then once it seems like it's done dripping, you can see it looks like it's done dripping, then I just put it on my racks, and then I fill up the table again and pour again and just keep going until I have everything poured that I want to pour for the day. This would, normally I just dump it back into my pouring tank. But when I started, I just had a 5-gallon pail and like a half-gallon 2-quart pitcher. Like a pitcher like you use for water, or like water or Kool-Aid. Then I did put it through a strainer. When I put it in from the, I mixed up my 5-gallon pail with a wooden dowel. You don't want to mix it too fast because then you get bubbles. So you want to be kind of gentle with your mixing when you're mixing. Pour it slowly, pouring in, pour it slowly, pouring out. And like these are little molds. These aren't big molds. The big molds, sometimes I have to like actually bear hug them and kind of tip them gently. But I do like pouring the big stuff too. So that's kind of all there really is to it. So then like this guy, I would come back and see if the air, I just keep tapping on him until the air lets him loose. You don't want to tap so hard that you break your piece. So he's obviously not ready to come out yet. Sometimes you have a stinker like that and you just got to set it aside. And then when he's ready to come out, like he'll come out. See, that's really all there is to pouring, you guys. It's not hard. Say you had a mold that leaked. I can show you what to do with that. Say this guy was a leaker. Sometimes you get older molds, and actually I've had brand new molds that are leakers. I stave this spare that we cut out. You can see it's just like nice clay. And you can actually use this to build stuff with, like to use it as clay. Just put it in a bag and keep it wet. So say this guy was a leaker through here. I just take some of this spare, and I have a baggie of this out there all the time. You just take it and smear it into the seam. This one don't want to go because it's a brand new mold, but that's all you do. You smear that into that seam. There's not much of a hole there. That's why it doesn't want to stay. But usually if there's a divot in there, it'll go right in there. And now this would be ready to pour. Like you could just pour it. That's enough to, if there was a hole there or chipped out or something, that would be enough to keep your mold from leaking. And then when you're done pouring, when you're going to open your mold, you're just going to scrape that all off. But that's all you do. You just take a piece, stick it in there, and even if you're pouring, say you get the whole thing poured and you notice it's leaking, just stick some of that in there quick, top it off, and you'll be good. I was going to say something and I forgot what I was going to tell you guys. I'm not sure what it was. Well, if I think of it, I'll have to post it. So pour slow, dump slow, keep topping it off, make sure your bands are tight. Oh, when you're pouring, you want to make sure you have enough to pour the whole piece, because wherever you stop, say I poured this and I stopped right here. If I stopped here, went and got more slip and filled it up, there's going to be a line all the way around my piece where I stopped pouring. So you want to make sure you have enough slip to keep pouring. So now you can see this guy. Whoop, geez, the band's not dry yet, but he's drying. So now he wouldn't be ready for like 2 hours to come out of the mold. And normally I would just pour him overnight, pour him tonight, and then leave him till the morning. Like I poured a whole table full, and I'll take them all out in the morning. And just doing the same thing I showed you guys, using the tool, you clean it off, cut your spare out. If you're not sure, just loosen the spare up, and then you can always trim it later. You don't want to go all the way down in there, because then I can show you, like if I would have went all the way down in, you'd actually cut into your piece. So hopefully you can see that. So you don't want to cut into your piece, and sometimes there may be the way the piece is shaped, it may come down further. So you got to be careful with that. Sometimes there'll be I don't know, like a it'll come in really far, and when you cut it, like it doesn't take much to go far if that detail is in right where you're gotta go with your tool. So you don't want to go in very far past where you think it is, and if you don't know, like just loosen it up, and then you can always come back and trim it with the X-Acto knife or the cleaning tool. You can use your cleaning tool as well. I just happen to use the X-Acto knife. Have you ever had a band break? Well, full slip. Oh yes, I have. It's a mess. More than once it's happened too. If it just breaks a little bit, say you had two straps on it and one broke, I would just grab another one and try to put that on. If it like completely gushed apart, you just have to clean up the mess. And like a dustpan and like a spatula, like a pancake flipper, just scrape all the slip off the floor or wherever it got, put it into the dustpan. I usually throw it out because the floor is dirty. I let the mold dry then, and then there's going to be like a really thin layer in there, and then you just peel out the clay. Just peel the clay out once it gets a little dry enough that you can. I usually don't re-pour it right away because like like where this flat part is it's going to be all full of slip, and it's not going to shut up tight. So I usually just start over if it's that bad, and that has happened more than once. I'm not going to lie. And it's very slippery when it's on the floor, so be really careful because it's very slippery. But yep, it happens. But like if say it maybe one of the bands, you got a big piece, and one of the bands, on top, one or bottom, it just let loose a little bit, and it's just like coming out. I'll strap it up with another strap, and then you can even take some of this your spare and smear it in there and get it sealed back up. I've done that quite a few times actually. If it ends up leaking while you're pouring it, because some of the older molds, like they just don't seal up as nice as the newer ones. But like I said, I've had a new one that leaked horrible as well, so it's not just the old ones. Some of like the old Christmas trees, I'll put the spare in those seams even before I pour them, because the chances are they're going to leak. So anybody have any other questions about pouring? I don't see anything else. But that's kind of the gist of it. It's not hard. I mean, you might come across a yard sale or someone's giving molds away or something. You can always check it out. You can usually buy the slip in like 2-gallon boxes pre-mixed. I actually mix my own, so I don't have to pay for the shipping of water. It was a learning experience, but it's doable. It's not impossible. But it's fun to do it. Like it's just as much fun to pour the molds and take them apart and see what it is. It's just like firing is fun because you put the stuff in and it looks one way, and when it comes out it looks another way. And so Kim says how. I'm not sure what you mean, Kim. So like say this guy was leaking, like I would just take another, if it wasn't leaking too bad, like I would just stop pouring, take another band, slip it on here, get it fairly tight. You don't want to dig into your molds, and I can see it's tight again. So if it's still leaking, I would take this and like run it where, say it's leaking over here, run that on there where it's leaking. Of course, I wouldn't tip it up like that. I was just trying to tip it up so you guys could see, because then you're going to have slip in your lap if you actually tip it up when it's got slip in it. Then I would start pouring it again. If your slip is staying at the top, you're okay, but if it's going down right away, you got to kind of look and see, okay, he's leaking over here yet. We'll plug it up over here. Plug it up, then you can top it off. Okay, now it's not going down, so you're okay with it then. Once the pieces are all clean, how long does it take to fire them? So it kind of depends on the kiln. It depends upon how heavy your load is on your kiln. Okay, Kim, to mix the dry slip, we'll talk about it in a minute. So it really depends upon the kiln and your load. Like if I packed in a whole bunch of our little ornaments that you guys had for last month, say I had 3 shelves of those, that one is going to take like 6 hours to fire because they're all really close and there's no airspace. If I have, say, 6 large Christmas trees, that one's probably only going to take like 5 hours because the trees are going to be apart from each other. There might be touched close on the bottom, but we have all this airspace up here, and so that's going to heat up faster, and so the kiln is going to get done faster. And then my little kiln down in the basement, I can put like 4 of the bundle up snowmen in him, and it only takes like 2.5 hours, but it's a smaller kiln and there's only 4 pieces in it. So it depends how hard or how big of a load you have. Like if, say, I needed 2 Christmas trees and they kind of filled up the kiln on the bottom, that might only take like 4 loads. But if you pack like 3 shelves full and they go all the way across, your air is not moving as much in the kiln, so it's going to take longer for it to fire. Sometimes I will put my bottom layer, I'll put stuff on it, and then I'll put a shelf halfway across and then put stuff just on this half so that there's openness here and getting to the bottom, and that helps it fire faster too, rather than putting like 3 shelves all the way across, all the way to the top. So you'll get to know your kiln of how long it takes for each one. So it kind of depends on how you load it. So Kim asked to mix the dry slip. So the dry slip has different ingredients in it, and different places have different recipes with different ingredients. So you just follow that recipe. They're not for little batches. Like I make like 22 gallons at a time when I'm making the clay slip. But I go through that much every week, so like for me, it made sense to mix the clay by from scratch like that, and not to pay for the water, shipping of water, because freight got so expensive here. But there may be some, I think there is. I think I've seen Painted Color Ceramics in Montana. They get some like it's a pre-mixed bag, and you must just mix that single bag with water. But like I use 250 pounds altogether of clay and the ingredients that go in there and water, and then there's some chemicals that I have to weigh. There's a dry chemical and a wet chemical or mineral that goes in there, and then it gets you have to put it in a certain order, so because the clay has to go in first, otherwise it doesn't mix. If you put the other stuff in first and then put the clay in, it doesn't mix. So there's a recipe that you have to follow like pretty step by step. And then the dry ingredients, like it's 2.5 ounces of the one thing and 15 ounces of the other thing. And I actually have to weigh it on a gram scale so that I'm getting it. Like you have to be really, really precise with it. And then it mixes with 2 half-horse motors with like a propeller on the bottom. And it has to have like a vortex, kind of like that tornado swirl going on down in the bottom. And then it mixes for 2.5 hours like that. And then I pump out 1 gallon, and then I have to weigh that. And that 1 gallon has to weigh 14 pounds and 5 ounces to have the right, that way I know I have the right ratio of everything and I didn't get too much. Say I recycled a bunch of stuff. Like you only want to use 10% of that into your new slip. You don't want to overdo it with your recycling of your slip. Do all the ingredients come together, or do you have to order them separately? My ingredients all come from the same place. I get them from Evans Ceramic Supply, and that they, however many pallets I tell them I want, that's what I get. And one pallet has 8 batches on it. And so that's kind of how I judge how many pallets to get. So I just got 2 pallets, so that'll take me to April. So that gets us through winter here. So that's kind of how I order what I order. And then I only have room for 3 pallets. in the storage unit, and then the third pallet actually had molds on it, so that's all I could get for clay. So that's kind of how that works. So all of that is the reason your bisque is the best. Oh, thank you. So yep, we have to weigh it so that it weighs a certain amount. Some people do it by viscosity. They put it through a little some little measuring thing, but Evans, they have me weigh it, and that's what I do with. I just weigh it. So it's worked out really good. So I'm glad I took the dive and decided to learn how to do it, because it's like it saves a lot on the freight is like $800. So freight is really expensive. So we don't want to pay for water when we can get water at the faucet. So that's what we do with that. So now this guy, you can see he's all dull now. So he's got to dry until he's ready to come out. And then again, I would just go around there with my fettling tool and then give that a little shake. And if you have a little rattle, then you know it's ready to come out. But he's not going to be ready for a couple hours here. Then these guys, they all get wiped down with a sponge. We clean them all up before they go back to the storage unit. So they're ready to pull the next time if someone wants something. You don't want to get them soaking wet. You just use a sponge, and he's really being, he doesn't want to come. So like I would just let him now overnight, because he's being a stinker and he doesn't want to come out. Otherwise we just end up losing him. If it's something that you think is going to crack, I would actually put lay a piece of plastic over this overnight so that he didn't dry out too much. So sometimes I'll do that, especially the big wreath molds. I lay a piece of plastic over them so they don't crack. I take the top off and put that over. That way they don't crack, but yet they set up enough that you can get them out of the mold the next day. So anybody have any other questions about pouring stuff? And then they just have their seam on them, like we cleaned last week. That's where those seams come from, because you have those molds that get put together. So I think you can see it's pretty messy. We get clay all over, we get slip all over. I've had the hose come off the pouring table. That just happened like 3 weeks ago when I was pouring, and I had to shut it off quick and grab the screwdriver and put it back on, and about 2 gallons of clay was all over the floor that we had to clean up. So thanks to Pam for helping me clean that mess up. But stuff like that happens too. Like it's just part of the deal, just like anything else. So do you guys enjoy having that little extra FYI education on our free nights, or would you rather have more of a painting night? Because in case we have more next year, then I'll know what to do. I know a couple of you guys had asked for the pouring. Jessica says, at what point do you start the pieces? When they're no longer wet looking? Yep. So these guys are wet and damp. So like they're so little, they'd probably be dry tomorrow. When they get that chalky dry look to them, then they get cleaned. But yep, definitely not when they're wet. Unless, like this is a really old mold, if you wanted, you could come along with your cleaning tool and clean them up just a little bit. And then finish cleaning them. Like sometimes the Christmas trees that are really worn, you can, they get really bad seams in them. You can clean them a little bit while they're wet like that. But then I wait for them to get like chalky dry, like it is on the mold here, and then they're ready to clean. And then we did clean last week, so if you missed that, you can watch that video. It should be there. So Amy says it's all good. Charlotte says hi. Hi, Charlotte. Everybody's box is out today except for Denise Foreigner's, which I messaged you. I lost your invoice when I was at the classroom. I don't know what happened to it. I was the only one out there, and I couldn't remember everything you had. So yours will go out tomorrow, but everybody else's is out. Except a couple that haven't paid. So if you guys pay, they'll go out once you pay. So good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. So how many molds at the same piece do you buy to pour for the boxes? I buy at least six molds of each mold for the boxes when we do the boxes, so that we don't lose the detail on them. Because if I and it would take forever to, if I only had one, to pour the amount of pieces that we need for the box. So I get six to seven molds of each mold that we pour for the box. So next month you guys are getting a bunny. It's a Clay Magic bunny, and then a tulip. So I have 6 molds of each of those that I started pouring on Tuesday, actually Tuesday morning, and that sneak peek will be coming as next week after we open our box on Thursday, and you guys get your box that we're going to be working on now, which I can show you again for anyone that joined late. It's our snowman and our tree. So that's what we're going to be, what's coming in your mail. And then the molds, I have to order them, like, I have all of the molds ready for next year up to August, because once I order them, it takes 8 weeks for them to make them, then another week in shipping, because they actually make them when they're like made to order, they're not on the shelf. And then another, like a week for them to get here by the time they get picked up and shipped out and delivered. And then they need to dry for another, it all depends where they're coming from. One place is like 2 weeks and another place is like 3 weeks. It depends how wet the molds are and how long it takes to get them dried out. So like I need like a full 3 months to be ahead of each month for your molds. So that's why, like right now we're doing pretty good, because I have all the molds through July. Like the July ones just came, and I'll be putting in the molds for August. September I have, because I got them at the show last August, and then October, November, December I'll be ordering those the 1st of February, so that I can have those in time to pour, get them made, get them shipped, get them dried, and then to start pouring for the August box actually. So we have to plan way ahead, way ahead. So, okay, so let me see. Love the way you're teaching, shows how you love this. Oh, I do love it. That's the truth. Excuse me. So you guys have probably seen I've been diving into the glass stuff a little bit at the classroom. That's something I've wanted to do for like the last 20 years, and actually I'm kind of doing it now. So I don't know how possible that is to do a box with that, just because of all the little pieces and it having to be fired and all that. So Carrie says, am I going to the Hamilton show? Probably not. I usually go to the Waukesha show. That's in Wisconsin. The booths at the show shows are not cheap at all. And then by the time you travel and have to stay, it just gets really expensive. But maybe once I retire or something, I'll travel and do the shows that way, or travel and do teaching. I'm not sure. We got about 5 to 7 years of that before that happens. So, anybody got any other questions? I'm glad you guys are learning and enjoying it, and trying to think of some new things for us to do this year. I thought of a few things, so we'll be doing those as I work them in. I'm trying to get this box out first before I kind of get all that stuff figured out. But like, we do have the crackle technique on our snowmen. February, it's those Easter things, and we might be doing a pearlescence on those. I have to check to see if I can get that. March will be our hummingbird pieces that we're going to chalk again. We're going to be doing chalking, and then they will have glaze on the inside of those. So that's why I switched February and March around, so I have time to glaze those for you guys. So that'll be your extra for that month, is the glazing and the firing of those. That way you can use your vases and your candy dish, actually use them. So hopefully that'll be good. So otherwise, I hope you guys have a good New Year's Eve and all that good stuff. We've had really crappy weather here this week, and rain and snow, and like 32 degrees, 30 degrees, and the weather hasn't been so good. Will you have V-Day stuff to buy extra? I will try to get the extras pulled and poured probably the middle of next week, and I'll create an album, and then you guys will be able to shop that. I have something really special coming you guys have been waiting for and waiting for. So I have the order in, and I haven't seen the actual sample in my hand, but something really cool is coming for February that you guys are going to be able to add on, I'm pretty sure. Where is Mowgli? I think Mowgli is sleeping, but I'll have to have Courtney post. Courtney became a kitty mama today. She has her own little orange kitty. They rescued her, and Jason, his sister, someone dropped off a baby kitten at her house, and Courtney and Jason are taking in this little baby kitty. He's orange. I'm sure he's nothing like Mowgli, but I only had one. I had a couple. She sent about 3 pictures of him, so I'll ask her if she can post a picture on here for you guys to see her little new buddy that she's got. So he's a little chubby little orange fella. So whoever had him must have been taking quite good care of him, because he looks well cared for. But I'm sure he's going to get spoiled to death now. And not sure what his name is yet, but I'll have her. I'll message her and have her post a picture for you guys so you can see her new little buddy that she's got. Hopefully he's a lap cat, because Mowgli is not a lap cat, and she wanted a lap kitty, so he looks like he's going to be a little demon. She's got a little scratching post, and he was already to the top of that, so I think she's going to have her hands full with a kitty for a little while. All right, so I think we're done. If anyone has questions, you guys can always message me. Even if you need help pouring or something, you can message me, like I can walk you through it. But that kind of gives you an idea of how our stuff is made, and maybe why things look the way they look sometimes, or it'll just help you understand the whole process, I guess. And we will have another free night whenever our next time is. I'm pretty sure our tulip and our bunny is probably going to take the whole month, and I'm thinking our chalk is going to take the whole month too. So, but we'll come up with some other stuff. So, and we'll have some new stuff to do. And then as soon as I get one of the things that's being made in hand, I will post a picture and put that in the album, because you guys are going to be pretty happy about that, I think. So I hope you enjoy your boxes when you get them. And otherwise, have a great week and stay warm. And thanks for joining me tonight, and hope you enjoyed our little pouring experience. So, all right, you guys, thank you and good night.